Now about both these modules, it's not mandatory to learn JUnit and TestNG both. Just go for one. If you're going for JUnit, then don't go for TestNG, and if you're going for TestNG, then don't go for JUnit. So select one of them, and in the coming modules, I'll be explaining you how to make a framework using JUnit and TestNG both. So learn JUnit and learn framework with that, or learn TestNG and learn framework with that. JUnit is more famous than TestNG, but TestNG has got more features than JUnit. If you're gonna in market, there's a more demand for JUnit. Fine, okay. Don't go for both of them, right? In this module, we'll be learning about the JUnit framework, and we will also be learning about the Java Ant. Ant is a different tool which is used to compile your programs and run them on command prompt. Firstly, we need to learn about JUnit framework. Now, there is what do you mean by a JUnit framework in Java, and why it is used, and what's the purpose for that? Okay, it's the controlling entity in your Selenium. For example, in your Selenium, suppose um, you have got 10 scripts running. Okay, wait a minute. Right. So suppose in Selenium, these are your scripts which are running. Okay, these are the reports which are getting generated. These are the reports, and out here, these are the Selenium scripts. Okay, along with it, some logging work is being done. Right, the log4j API, which we saw, the logging work is done. Along with that, we have a set of Excel files with us from which the data is being read. Okay, so you want that this script should be executed first, then this script, and sometimes this script you don't want it to execute, then this script you want to execute in the end. Now there has to be a controlling entity in between which controls everything. The controlling entity will read the data from the Excel file, will call the corresponding script and pass on the data to it from the Excel file, and will also generate the reports and also do the logging. So this controlling entity over here is the JUnit framework. Now, analogous to JUnit framework, there is another framework available in the market that is known as the TestNG framework. It's also very good and it's better than the JUnit framework. Okay, but in the market, JUnit is more famous than TestNG. Right? Many people are going towards TestNG now, and it's they both of them they do the same work. They are the controller entities. So in this course, it's not just about learning Selenium, as I had discussed in the module 1 as well. It's about learning all of this stuff. And today we'll start with the JUnit. Okay. In the next module, we'll see TestNG. Now about JUnit. The first step is to actually, I'll make a project called um, module 8, and now from now onwards I'll write the name of the module JUnit and Ant. Okay, now in this module we'll run some dummy tests around, and we'll see how to build test cases in Selenium. Right, now JUnit, it's not just restricted to Selenium. People use JUnit for white box testing as well. In other testings as well, JUnit is used. It's just that you can use JUnit with Selenium as well. It's not made specifically for Selenium. Right, inside the source folder, I'll create a new package. I'll name my package as test cases, and I will make my first JUnit test case. In this, I'll make a new class and I'll name it first test case. Right, now this is my class, the first test case. Inside it, there, if I have to make it a JUnit class, inside it, if I want to write a test case, then I don't need to write a public static void main out here. Okay, all you need to do is you need to give the annotation @test, and on the next line write the method, any name, public void XYZ test. The only rule is that I'll come back. Oh, just a minute. First of all, you need to integrate the JUnit into your project. Integrating JUnit is similar to, like, we used to integrate the jar files, right, while reading the Excel files. Similarly, you need to add the JUnit library to this project. How do you do that? You move your mouse over this error test, and the fix would be add the JUnit 4 library to the build path. Okay, so you can click on this, and this JUnit 4 library will get added to the build path. Right now, it's over here. Right, JUnit.jar. Now, in this, two jars are present. Okay, so all the JUnit library has been associated with it, and this is an annotation @test. This signifies that this method is my test case. So when I run this file, this method will be called automatically, and inside this test case we will be writing our Selenium code. When we learn Selenium from module 9 and 10 onwards, we'll be writing the Selenium code inside this test. Okay, now for time being, what I'll do is I'll just write system.out.println testing and application, right? And I want to run this file. So you don't run this normally, you right click on it and select the option run as JUnit test. Right click on the file, run as JUnit test. You run it and you will see the JUnit output coming on the left hand panel, and it tells you that the test case has executed successfully. If it had failed, then there would have been a failure trace over here. Under which circumstances can it fail and how can we report it to be failed, we'll study later on. Okay, so this is a simple test case which I have written, XYZ test. Right, now similarly, I'll just drag this window to the bottom. I'll see the result over here. Right, now similarly, what you can do is you can write any number of test cases in this. For example, this was my login test. The name of the method should have the test word in it. If I don't give the test word, and if I simply run it, right click, run as JUnit test, it will also print testing an app. It's printing. If you go to the results, it will work. But it's a good practice to have the test method, the test word inside every method, so that we can distinguish if I have written another method which is not a test method. So the test keyword can actually help us distinguish between the actual test methods and non-test methods. So it's a general convention in the industry that generally people write test in the end. Okay, so or in the beginning, whatever it is. So now this is my first test. Now another test is can be like public void register test. Okay, now inside it I can write system.out.println registering a user, and when I run this first test.java again, run as JUnit test, then you will see testing an app gets printed and registering a user gets printed. Right, so I'll just write logging test, logging in user. Okay, now suppose I write another test case over here, @test public void database test, or I'll leave it like database, and I write inside it system.out.println testing the database. Okay, so in this file I've got three test methods. One is for login, one is for registration, and the third one is for testing the database. If I run this, see, logging in user, registering a user, and testing a database. So it's printed serially. First this test gets executed, then this test, and then this test. Okay, now I can even remove this test keyword and execute. You see the order changes. Registering a user is called first and then logging in a user. So that's the disadvantage. You should always write test. So if you keep test keyword in front of each and every method, then they will be called in a particular order from top to bottom. So that's why it's a good convention to actually write test. Out here I have not written test. So registering a user is getting printed first. So when I run it now, the login will be executed first, then registering a user, and then the third one. See now I get the correct order. So it's not mandatory, but it's necessary to put the test word into your test case. Alright, so I've written 3 test cases out here, and when I executed, all the 3 stuff got printed. Now this is the result window JUnit. If you go over here, then in this window you will be seeing all the 3 tests getting executed. They are saying that all JUnit is saying that all 3 have passed, right? And actually all the Selenium code will be written inside these test methods. Okay, so JUnit is the heart of the system. Now what we need to do is that we need to ignore this test. Suppose tomorrow something happens and I don't want to run the register test. Okay, so you can ignore this test by writing an annotation on it @ignore. It's that simple. So when you write @ignore and run this first test case, I right click on it and I say run as JUnit test, and see, it never got printed, registering a user. And similarly, when you see the results, this signs means that the register test has been skipped. Fine. Now you can also generate HTML based reports in JUnit. Those reports would look something like this. Okay, but to generate these reports you need to run JUnit with ant. Okay, so when I teach you ant, I'll tell you how to execute these reports, how to make these reports, sorry. Right, now we seen that @test annotation means that this is a test case. @ignore means that ignore this test. Alright, now suppose I have got another test over here, new class called second test case. Alright, and in this I have an annotation method called @test again, and this is the test name is public void send email. This is my another test in another file. I'll import the file and I'll write simply system.out.println sending email, and I'll just write testing sending email and send email the test word over here. Okay, now I can run this send email test again. I can run the second test. I can say run as JUnit test. Only the second test will be executed in the reports. Only the second test would be visible. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to run the first test case .java first and execute all the test cases in it. Ignore the second one, and after that I want to run this all the tests in second test case .java using JUnit. Okay, for that we have to make a third Java file. You can name the Java file anything. I'll just write my test suite runner. So what I'll do is I'll keep all these first and second test cases in .java in one test suite, right? So this is the class. In this class you don't have to write anything inside the class. The only thing is you have to give 2 annotations. The first annotation is run with. The run with command will have the name of the class suite.class. Just import the file. Now suite.java is a file inside JUnit. You are saying that you have to run this class with that, and you have to specify the suite classes here. You have to use another annotation called suite classes, and you have to write the name of the classes here in the curly bracket. The first class would be first test case dot class. Capital small, you have to be very careful. Okay, comma, the second would be second test case dot class. Okay, so you can import this. Fine. So this says that you can actually put both the classes as one test into one test suite and run the whole test suite. Both the classes would be executed. So all you have to do now is right click on this file and simply run as JUnit test. That's it. When you run this, both of them would be executed, and if you see the JUnit reports, then see test cases dot first test case got executed. Inside it, I'll just maximize this. Test cases dot first test case got executed. Inside it, three methods got executed. Register skip got skipped, register test, and this thing over here just executed the send email test. Alright, fine. So that means I have run the whole thing in a batch. Okay, this is known as batch running or running it as a part of suite. Okay, generally what companies do, they write the classes like this, because you can have 50 classes, right? You cannot just separate comma and keep them in one line. So we keep on adding them in the new lines like this. Tomorrow if I have another class, I can just write like this, comma, then another class like this. Okay, so generally we keep the classes of one test suite in the same package. In the same package we keep the classes of the same test suite. Now coming back to first test case.java. So what we did till now was we created some test cases in two files and we actually batch run them. Okay, we execute them as a part of suite. Now I'll come to second test case. Let's take up second test case. Now we want that suppose something should happen before this test case, and we also want that something should happen after the test case. For example, I want before this test method is executed, a browser should be opened, and after this test case is over, the browser should close. So what we do is we make the method, the annotation methods at the rate before, okay, and give the name public void. I can give any name, xyz abc. I'll write open browser. No need of writing a test here. This is not a test. This is something which is happening before executing the test case at the rate before. Now similarly you can write at the rate after over here, okay, and you can write public void close browser, and in this after method you can write the code to close the browser using Selenium, and in this code you can write the code to before method, you can write the code to open the browser using Selenium. Okay, so I'll write inside it system.out.println opening the browser, and out here I'll write in close browser closing the browser. Fine. So now I'll run my second test case. I'll just run it individually. Right click, run as test.ng suite. So what will happen is that opening the browser will be printed, then testing, sending mail, and then closing the browser. So what is happening is that this function is called send email test will be called, but before that, before method will be called, and after that, after method. Right? So we have something which can execute before and after executing the test. Now suppose I want that there is one more test case over here. Suppose add the test, and the test name is, suppose, send message, something else, send message test. Okay, testing sending message. Okay, I'll just go back to original mode and run this now. When I run this, observe carefully the output. See, what happens is that out here, this is the first test executing, the part which I highlighted. Opening the browser, testing, sending email, closing the browser. This gets printed. Now after that, again the before and after method are called for the second test. So that means that before and after methods will be called each and every time before and after executing each and every test inside a file. Okay, so I have a test called this, and I have a test this. Okay, so this test method, both these methods, before executing will call the before method, and after executing will call the after method. Right? Now, suppose there is a situation in which we don't want to do that. There can be a situation in which we want to do that. Okay, suppose I want to test both these tests on different browsers. Okay, I want to execute both these tests on different browsers. Then before method will work. But if I want to do it on the same browser, then this will not work. Okay, so for making it, so I need an annotation method, okay, which should be called before actually executing all the tests and after executing all the tests of a file. So the order in which the annotation methods are called, this is a predefined order. You don't have any control over it. Fine. So I want an annotation method which is called before executing all the test cases and after executing all the test cases. It shouldn't be called before and executing each and every test. The chances for that, for using such a method is less, but yes, you can use that. You might use that because generally we just keep one test annotation method in one Java file. That's a general rule. People prefer that. Okay, but in case you are writing two and you want to execute something before executing both of them, okay, not one after the another, not like at the rate before, you can use the annotation method called at the rate before class. Now I'm going to talk about this before class now. So I'll write the method public static void beginning. It's not a test. I'll not write the test annotation here. I'll not write a test inside it. I'll write over here system.out.println beginning, and similarly the position of these annotation methods is not important. I can also write the annotation method after out here. The position, it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. After is actually before, but it will not matter. Similarly, the after class method is present, after after class, and I will write over here ending right. So before class and after class are two methods. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this test, second test case, right click, run as JUnit test. So you see that beginning and ending, it gets printed before and after executing all the tests. Now the only thing is that this should be static in nature. That's how JUnit has been made. The before class and after class methods, both of them have to be static. Others are non-static. Okay, so the JUnit has been made in such a manner. And before class and after class methods will be executed before and after executing all the test cases, and before and after would be executed for each one of them, and the test annotation method represents the test. So I'm going to jot down all the annotation methods we have studied. We have studied about @test. We have studied about @ignore. This will ignore a test case. If I write this upon this function, out here, if I write @ignore, this test will be ignored. Fine. We have studied after. We have studied before. We have studied before class. We have studied after class. Right? So now these are the annotation methods we have studied. There are one or two more annotation methods we will be studying. If you want to study more about them, you can go to Google and just type JUnit 4. These annotation methods, they actually came in JUnit 4. In JUnit 3, they were not there. You can write annotations and search. You'll get a lot of information on it. Okay. There is a seamless, endless information available on the net regarding the JUnit annotation methods. Okay. So now we have seen how to run a test case, how to run test cases in batch. And now suppose if I run this test case in a batch, you'll see that if you see the output, then this is the test case first test and this is the second test. So in order to run them in batch, you have to run the my test suite runner, and my test suite runner will actually hold which all classes to run. Okay, so we saw about running individual tests, we saw about running the tests in a batch, running number of Java files, we saw how to use the annotation methods, right? Now we'll see something known as assertions in JUnit. Okay, how do you use assertions in JUnit? Fine. Now before I actually come over to that, okay, I'll tell you the last thing, that is how to skip the test cases without using ignore. Suppose I'm in my second test case, right? And I want to ignore all the tests in the second test case. I want to ignore all the test cases. I don't want to run any test case inside second test. Okay, so what I will do is, in the before class, I can write a line, assume true, and inside it I'll write false. Now what is this? What does this line mean? This line means that stop the execution of this test. Assume true is some condition. Okay, for example, I have this there are two test methods in this, send email and send message alert, message test, right? For both of them, I need to be logged in into the application. For sending a message and sending an email, I'm just assuming that I need to be logged in into the application. Okay, and what I can do is, out here you can actually write some code. I'm just taking a hypothetical example which checks, or for example, I'll write a method in this class. I'll write a method called public static boolean check login, and this function is returning me false if the login is not successful, and it will return me true if the login is a success. So I'm just taking a hypothetical example. This is a function in which I will write some Selenium code which will determine whether the user has actually logged in into the application or not. And if the user has not actually logged in, this function will return me false and true if it has logged in. So what I can do is I can directly write over here check login. Now if check login returns true, I'm writing assume true, then the test will continue. But if the check login returns false, then this line on encountering false will skip all the tests in this file. Okay, so let's give it a run. Let's see. Let's run the whole test suite. Run as test JUnit test. So when I run it, see, only the beginning and the ending gets printed. No before method, no test method. Right? If you look at the results, you see that both the tests have been skipped. Right? So if you want to skip the tests with the help of code, you just have to write the line assume true and the condition. If the condition is false, then the test will not be executed. If the condition is true, the test will be executed. Okay. Now that's major function of JUnit. If you're able to understand this much in JUnit, then it would be great. When we actually start with Selenium and we start working practically on JUnit, then you would really understand what JUnit is and how we use it practically. Fine. Now I'm going to take an example of assertions. I'll make a new test class called understanding assertions. Fine. Now in this test class, I'll make a test method @test, right? And the test name would be public void test. Say I'm testing the friend list in my Facebook account. So in this test method, I have given the test word in the beginning. It doesn't matter. You just have to write the test word. It should be present in the name of the method. It's not mandatory as I told you, but it's important for the order to be there. Now in this method, I need to log in, and whatever I have to do, I log in into Facebook and I need to check whether the total number of friends in my friend list is equal to the actual number. Right? So suppose I have an integer called int actual total friends equals to 100. Okay, and I'm directly writing 100 over here. This will be extracted with the help of Selenium. Selenium will count your total friends in the Facebook account. Okay, so this is just a hypothetical, I'm assuming. Okay, and then you can write over here int expected. Now expected data you should be having with you. Now, when we work in Selenium, this will be coming from an Excel file, an XLS file. And we saw the code earlier, how to read the XLS file, right? So now I need to compare both of them. So I can write an if statement. If actual total friends is equal to expected total friends, then system.out.println pass, okay, else system.out.println fail, and report the errors. I want this test case to fail in this case. Okay, so when I run this test case, I just give it a dummy run, right click, run as test JUnit test. In it's printing pass, that means both of them are equal, and in the JUnit out here it will write pass. Now suppose if I write this as 101, expected becomes 101, actual becomes 100. Now the test case should actually fail, right? It should fail. So for failing, if I run this, if I right click on this and I write run as JUnit test, this will print fail, but in the reports the test case would still come as pass. Everything is green. If test case fails in JUnit, this color changes to reddish or bluish color. Okay, so how do I report the error in the reports? Okay, so for that you need assertions in JUnit. You don't write if-else statements, otherwise you'll go simply mad writing if-else statements again and again while testing. Okay, so for that we use assertions. I'll just comment out this code instead of deleting it, so that when you download this code you have it with you. Okay, and you can write over here assert dot assert equals. Now assert is an inbuilt class in Java JUnit, and assert equals is a static function inside it. So that's why I'm directly able to call that static function inside the assert class in JUnit. And you have to write the expected value here and the actual value. So I write the expected value and I write the actual value, put a semicolon. Now if I write it like this, assert dot assert equals expected and actual, and I run this code, this will report an error. You see that? Failure. Expected 101 but was 100. It's very small in size, right? And it also tells you the line on which the error comes. Understanding assertions Java :22, that means 22 is the line number. If I double click on this line number, then that line will be highlighted. Okay, and this line has the 22 row number. How do you know the row number in Eclipse? Out here down below, this is the row number 22. Colon is the column number. Colon 14. 14 is the column number. So basically Eclipse is trying to tell you that on this line the error came. Right? Okay. But there's a drawback of this assertion. Although it is reporting my error, the advantage is that I'm able to report the error into the results. Okay, I'm not talking about HTML results right now. We'll see that with AND when we learn AND at the end of this module. But I'm talking about normal reports present in Eclipse. It's able to report in that. Okay, but there's a drawback. The drawback is that if I write system.out.println A over here, and I write system.out.println B over here, and I run this program, right click, run as JUnit test. This just prints A. It prints A, the assertion fails, and the rest of the test is not executed. Now that's the problem. Getting my point? Right? Now had this test been a part of the whole test suite, in my test runner suite, I'll add this class in the very beginning. Okay, fine, and I'll just remove this assumption in the second test. It was causing all the tests in the second test case to ignore. right? So what is happening is that in the test suite, I have added this line understanding assertions dot class. Understanding assertions dot Java, what it does is I'm deliberately failing the code on this line. So the only A got printed here when I executed this file alone. Now if I execute it with the whole test, if I right click on this and I write run as test JUnit test, then you see the reports. In the reports, A gets printed. Then the first test case in which the user actually was logging in and testing, that was executed. And after that, the third test was executed. If you look at the JUnit reports, understanding test assertions is reported as failure. The first test is passing, the second test is passing. Now everything looks good to us. The first test fails, all the two tests they pass. The first test fails because of an assertion, but the only thing which will be catching your eye is that the B is never printed. Okay, so the drawback of assertion is that if used directly, if I just write this line, the lines after this line will not be executed if the assertion fails. If the assertion is passing, if both these are equal, 100 and 100, and if I run this whole test suite, sorry, then A and B will be printed. That means the test carries on successfully. But if the assertion fails, that is, if this is 1001, then that is 100, then B will not be printed. So when you batch run tests, okay, you are batch running 10 tests. Okay, these are my 4 test cases which I am running. So the control goes like this. First this one gets executed, then this one, then this one, and then this one. So if an assertion error comes over here in this second test and it comes on line number 50, all the lines from line number 51 to 100 will not be executed. Rather, the control will jump on to the third test and the third test will start getting executed. And on the third test, if again an assertion error comes on certain line, that test will be reported a failure and the next test would be continued. Now, suppose we have a scenario in which we don't want to do this. Suppose, okay, fine. If my actual friends and total friends, they do not match, fine. It's not a big error for me. The error should be reported and I want to continue forward. I just don't want to stop on this line. Okay, I want to continue forward testing Facebook. Okay, so in that case, you need to put a try catch block around this. Put a try and put a catch. So that whatever exception it's coming, or there's an error actually comes, not an exception. Throwable T error, throwable will catch an error. Okay, and out here I'll write system.out.println error encountered. Okay, now what will happen is if the assertion fails, the control will come inside the try catch block, in the catch block. We had seen the similar scenario when we were studying exception handling earlier, right? In the earlier Java modules, I think it was module 6 in which I actually covered exception handling, right? So in module 6, when we saw to actually the try catch block, and we used to put the try catch block so that the program execution never stops. Similarly here, the program execution will not stop, right? So when I run the whole test suite, okay, let me run this file individually, understanding insertions. When I run this as a single test, A gets printed, error encountered gets printed, and then B gets printed. Okay, but the problem which I will face now is that another problem rises because of this. The problem is that the test is reported as pass, because actually here I am recovering from the error. By writing the catch block, I have recovered from the error. Okay, out here I have recovered. So I will have to write some Java code to report the error. If I come into the catch block, that means the assertion has failed. And if the assertion has failed, the Java code should be reporting an error. Now, how does Java code report an error? Java code reports an error with the help of something known as error collector class. I'll write public, I'll create an object of that class at global level, error collector. I'll name the object as error collector equals to new error collector. Now, error collector is an inbuilt class in JUnit. You need to import it, and above this line you have to write @rule. This means that this is a rule in JUnit. Okay, and a rule class in JUnit is predefined. It signifies various rules. Okay, error collector. Now what you can do out here is, all you have to do write is error collector dot add error and give t. Now what is t? Whenever an error is thrown, an object of the class throwable is made. Okay, and t is the reference of that class in the memory. So you just pass t to the error collector. That's it. Your error will be reported in the test. So when you run your test now, right click, run as JUnit test. The whole test gets executed as well as the error gets reported. That expected 1001 but was 100. Right? Now similarly, I'll just maximize this. I can write again an assert statement. Assert dot assert equals A with B. This will again fail. Right? So what I will do is, I'll write this inside another try catch block. Fine. I can write another try catch block, A with A, comparing A with A. So what will happen is that this try catch block will fail. This try catch block will fail. So actually in reports, two errors should be reported, but this try block will not fail. The control will not go into the catch because both of them are equal. So when I run understanding assertions.java as a standalone file, run as JUnit test, so I'll get two errors. And if you look at the reports, then in JUnit reports, two errors will be reported along with the line number and the description. Expected A but was B. Expected 1001 but was 100 along with the line number. So that means error collector, it has a kind of basket with it. It collects all the errors and put all the errors in the basket, and in the end it reports in the test. So using the combination of try catch block around the assert statements and using the error collector in the catch block, you can actually put the error. We needed that error collector because if I don't give it, the test will continue to move further, but the error will not be reported. So you have to reuse an error collector over here in JUnit. Right? Now what if I run this as a whole test suite? I'll run the first test, second test case and understanding assertions. I'll right click here and simply say run as JUnit test. See, all the three tests got over, and in the details you'll see everything passing except the first test in which I encountered two errors. So this is how you can report errors in the JUnit framework. Right? Okay. Now there are many advanced topics in JUnit as well, like suppose creating your custom runners and test listeners and blah blah. Right? So some people use that in Selenium while making a framework. Some people, they don't use that in Selenium while making a framework. So the next thing is that this is all about error collector and other stuff. The next thing which I'm going to talk about is parameterizing your test cases, and after that I'll talk about the custom runners and test listeners and all. Okay, so Till now we have studied how to run your single test case, how to ignore test cases, what are the various annotation methods in JUnit, and we have also studied the um, what do you say, the assertions, how to use assertions in JUnit. Okay, now we will look at using how to parameterize the tests. Okay, now what do you mean by parameterization? Okay, for parameterizing the tests, I will create a new file, parameterized test case dot java. Okay, inside this I'll create a method called @test. The name of the method would be public void test login, right? And now I want to, suppose I have the Selenium code here and I want to check login with two different users. That is, I want to test my login functionality with two different users. Fine. So how do I do that? Basically, I have to run this test more than once with different types of inputs. Okay. So the first thing you do for that is in front of this class, you write the annotation method run with parameter. This is a standard rule and you have to always do this. Parameterized dot class. It comes with practice. As you practice, go on practicing, everything will come. Fine. Parameterized dot class. I'm doing some mistake here. Oh, spelling mistake. Meterized. Parameteri. Wait a minute. Okay. I'll just take an example from here. This is the one. I also don't remember everything. Right. There was a spelling mistake, nothing else. Okay. So I'll just import everything. And I will also import parameterized class. I don't know why it's not importing. Fine. It's imported now. Okay. So this class, you have to write it like this. Run with parameterized dot class. Okay. Now after this, suppose you have to declare the parameters at the global level. For example, I want a public string username. Okay. Or instead of this, suppose this is my register function. Why am I changing the name? I'll tell you in some time. Register. And another string called public string password. So I'm keeping two strings, usernames and passwords, and another string called public string or an int. I'm registering a user, so I'll need the pin code of the city. So suppose I'll just take one more, or just this much is okay. Fine. So I need a username, password, and a pin code here. Okay. Now inside this, I'll write the annotation method, or I'll write the constructor of this class. So for parameterizing, first you have to write @run with, then you have to describe the parameters which you want to run this test case with again and again, and after that you need to write a constructor of this class and pass on the username, password, and the pin into this. And inside this constructor you will write this dot username equals to username which you have passed on. This dot username means the username, the global username of the current object. I told you this in the module 3, right? Okay, this keyword will always represent the current object. This dot password equals to password. This username is this username, this password is this password, but this username is this username, and this password is this password. So I am equating the global parameter to the local parameter, but the thing is both of them have the same name, so that's why I'm writing this. And this dot pin equals to pin, right? The pin, oh, this should be int over here, int pin, right? So this is the second step. Third step, this is the first step. This global parameters declaration is the second step. Writing a constructor with the same number of parameters as the global parameters is the third step. And the fourth step, the last one, is to write a function with the annotation @ parameters. Okay, and I'll name this function public static void collection object data. I'll import this. Oh, not void. And now what is this? Many of you must be wondering, right? What is this collection? I remember I told you about collections API. I told you about array list and all everything. Okay, I'm making a new Java file over here, a standalone Java file named as test.java. Okay, and inside it, collection I write. Now collection is similar to array list. Okay, you can write collection A equals to new array list. You will not get an error. What is there is that collection is an interface and array is the subclass which is implementing that interface. Similarly, you can write a dot add something, right? So you can keep on adding stuff to it. So it's not every time you can it's an option with you. Either you write collection A equals to new array list or array list A equals to new array list. A is the reference of the interface collection, but array list is the child class. These all are inbuilt. You can write like this. Now similarly, what I'm writing over here is that I'm returning a collection object, okay, and that object will have object arrays inside it. Now how will I do that? Let me tell you. Just listen to this carefully. I'll make a two-dimensional object array, call it data, and name this function as get data. It looks more good. Data equals to new object array. Now number of rows and columns in this object array, you have to decide that. I want 2 rows. Number of rows would be equal to number of times you want to repeat the test. Fine. And number of columns will be equal to number of times, number of parameters you want to pass. Out here, I want to repeat this test 2 times with different parameters, and there are 3 parameters over here: username, password, and pin. So number of columns would be 3. So I will assign values to the first row over here. I'll write data 0 0 equals to let me maximize it first. Data 0 0 equals to the username. I'll give the username as test user1, and similarly data 0 1 as the password. First 0th row, first column, 0th row, 0th column, 0th row, first column, pass 1. And similarly data 0 2 equals to the pin code. Now because I have made this object array, I can put any data type into it. So that's why I'm able to put string as well as integers. Now similarly I can assign value to the second row as well. This will be my second set test data. Second set of test data for executing this test for the second time. So you write the pin code over here. Okay, and in the end you write return arrays dot as list data. Now what is this arrays dot as list data? Now I'll just come back to test.java. Now suppose I have an array. I have a object array. Two-dimensional object array. I'll just copy the whole object array here. Where's the object array? I'll just copy this into a normal function having public static void main. And out here I write arrays dot as list and data. So what as list function does is it will convert the whole object array into an array list. It will convert the whole object array into an array list. And how will this object array look like? It will look like this. In this case, the whole object array will be put in this array list. There will be two sections in this array list, 0 and 1, because there are two rows in this object array. In the first row, the first set of test data will be present in the 0th index of this array list. The first row will be present, and in the first index of this array list, the second row will be present. Okay, so as list function, it will convert the whole two-dimensional array into an array list and put the first row in the 0th position and the second row in the first position of the array list. See, it returns you a list as a return type. Fine. Okay, now that's it. That's all you need to do. Now how will Java come to know that? Suppose in this test register function I'll write system.out.println testing registration, and I write the username and I write the password and I write the pin code. Okay, so I've just written system.out.println testing registration, username, password and pin code. Okay, now when I run this test, individually, right click, run as JUnit test. This test, oh, there's a mistake. I should write 1 over here for the second row. This is the first row and this is the second row. Okay, my mistake, right? Right click, run as JUnit test. So you'll see this test method is being called twice with different sets of data. Now how is this happening behind the scenes? How I just declared that these are my test parameters, this is the constructor and this is the parameters annotation method. That's it. Now how come this test is getting executed 2 times? That's the question, right? So that's done by JUnit. You don't have to worry. That's internal to JUnit. You just have to concentrate on your business logic, how to build a test case. Calling the test method again and again and reading the parameters, that's JUnit's headache. All you need to do is you need to provide these 4 steps completely, nothing to miss. Okay, define the parameters, make the constructor with same number of parameters, and in this get data function, make an object array. Number of rows should be number of times you want to execute the test. Number of columns should be same as number of parameters. That's it. Now tomorrow if I want to execute it 3 times, I can make 3 over here and add one more row. That's it. That's the beauty. Test user 3, pass 3 and 1, 2, 3. So now when I run this test, you see again the same mistake, sorry. You should be 2, 2 and 2. Okay. Now when I run this, right click, run as JUnit test. You see that it gets executed 3 times. So that's how you parameterize your tests in JUnit. Okay. So till now we have studied about the annotation methods. We studied about assertions, using assertions in JUnit. Okay. And we studied about parameterizing the tests. I forgot to tell something you in assertions. There's one more assert method called as assert true. You give the error message here and you give the condition here. Suppose I give the condition 4 greater than 3. Okay, so assert true. Okay, it will print this error message if this condition fails. So out here while working with Selenium, you can put a condition like if the button is present, okay. If the button is not present, this assert method will fail. Out here the output should be of the type boolean. If the output is true, then this assert method will not fail. But if the output is false, then this will fail. Okay, we'll study about it when we actually study Selenium. So time being, just remember that assert true wants the condition to evaluate to true. Alright, so we studied about assertions, and in the end I just talked about parameterization, how to parameterize your tests. There are just 4 steps in this, just 4 steps. Okay, that's it. So now we'll study about test listeners and custom runners in JUnit. Although this is a very advanced topic, most of you won't be using this, but yes, in an interview you can ask about it. You can be asked. Okay, and after that JUnit will end. After test listeners and custom runners. If you want to study more about JUnit and see the Java docs and all, I have uploaded the Java docs of JUnit. About JUnit along with this project. Okay, so the Java docs for JUnit, I had kept them somewhere. No. Yeah. These are the Java docs of JUnit which I have uploaded. JUnit 4.8, which is the latest version. You can study about all the classes and all, and you should not remember everything, but yes, if you want to look at the Java API, what everything looks like, these are the Java docs. Now what are Java docs? These, they tell you about each and every class present inside JUnit. For example, we just talked about this class, error collector. It will tell you about error collector. Error collector rule allows you to execute a test to continue after the first problem is found. And it will tell you about all the methods and everything in it. Okay, so you don't need to remember anything. The stuff which I've just taught you is more than enough to actually make a Selenium framework. As I told you, JUnit was not specifically made for Selenium, but you can use Selenium with it. It's used for white box testing. Okay, so it's basically a testing framework. Okay, now let's and the parameterization test case. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now I will tell you about the tool ant. Ant can be used to actually make HTML reports and run your same project. Like I have the project modulate JUnit ant. I can run it through command prompt using ant. How can I do it? I can go to the command prompt and I can write something over here in ant, and I can actually execute the whole JUnit test cases from command prompt. Now this is helpful because sometimes you have to run your Selenium's tests through Unix servers. You have to deploy the test cases on the Unix servers and you have to run it over there. So for that you need the ant build and deploy tool. Okay, so ant is nothing, it's just a build and deploy and a tool which can actually help you to run your project on a command prompt or on a Unix based shell, right? So how do you do that? To do that, first of all, you need to download ant onto your machine. You can download ant by going to Google and typing download ant. Okay, so you can go to this link, Apache Ant binary distributions, and download the latest version from here, ant 1.8.2 bin.zip. Okay, after downloading, for example, in my MPC, I have kept the ant over here. I extracted, this was the zip file which I downloaded, and I kept the zip file over here. Okay, I'll go inside it, the ant, and I will copy the path at which it is present. It's not to be installed, it is configured in your system environment variables. How do you configure your system environment variables with ant? You have to go to my computer, go to the properties, and go to advanced tab and click on environment. Okay, so I'll again repeat it. You go to my computer and go to properties and go to the advanced tab. In Windows Vista and 7 operating systems, then it's a bit different. When you go to my computer properties, you get something different, a different screen that might look like this. Online sessions. Okay. I had stored the screenshot. Yes, it might look like this, the window. Okay, you have to click on the link over here, this link. You see behind this small window, there's a link called advanced written on the left hand side. Okay, I'll just highlight it inside paint. When you go to my computer properties, you get a page like this and you have to open this link, advanced, and the window like this will pop up in Windows 7 and Vista. Okay, now once you get a Windows like this, you have to go to the advanced tab of that window and click on environment variables. You add in the system variables, you have to add a new variable named as ant underscore home and the path as the path where your ant is present. Okay, I've already added in my PC, it's over here. Alright, now after that you have to go down and you have to edit a variable called path. Edit this and don't change anything between this. Your system might not function properly if you change this. Okay, you have to go in the end, put a semicolon, right, and give the path of your ant and write /bin. After giving the path of the ant, write /bin. So you have to put a semicolon, give the bin directory path of the ant. Okay, I've already done that in my PC. Fine. So once you have all this ready, once you have the ant home variable ready, once you have the path variable appended, right? You click on OK, OK, and now your ant is ready to be used. You go on the command prompt and give the command. If the command prompt is already opened, you need to close it and open a fresh command prompt after configuring your variables. Okay, and give a command ant. You'll get an error message. I've got the error message build file build.xml does not exist. But at times you might get a different error message that it's unable to find a jar file named as tools.jar. Many people get this error message. To remove that error message that unable to find tools.jar file, you have to go to your operating system, go into program files. There will be a folder called Java. Go into JDK folder, not the JRE, JDK. Inside JDK folder, there would be a library folder. Go inside the library and copy the file tools.jar. Copy it, go up. Now go in the JRE folder and go in the library and paste this file. I already have it. Fine. This would actually get you rid out of. This will actually eliminate the problem that tools.jar not present. Generally, it's not present over here, and it tries to search it over here. If I delete this file from here, the tools.jar, okay, it's not getting deleted. Anyways, I'll get there. So people having the error that tools.jar is not missing can actually copy it from JDK into the JRE library. Alright, now again if I give the command and, now if you give the command and after copying pasting that jar file, you'll get an error like this, that build.xml does not exist on your PC. Fine, build.xml is not existing at this location H drive. Now what is build.xml? Build.xml is an XML file which actually Ant searches for in your project. Okay, so you don't what you do in the build.xml file is that you supply all the parameters into that file, that okay, my Java files are lying at this location, my project is lying at this location, the ant needs to generate the reports at this location, the class files will be lying at this location, everything. Okay, so ant reads that file, understands it and works accordingly. Okay, so because in command prompt I don't have a user interface like Eclipse to run my programs, so I'll have to tell the command prompt that okay, here is the file, here is the project and run it. That is done through build.xml file. Okay, what I'll do is I'll copy a build.xml file. Okay, how do you make a build.xml file? You right click on this project and go to new profile and give the file name as build.xml. Okay, and in this you'll write some code. So instead of wasting time, I'll just copy it from an existing project of mine and I'll explain you. Okay, so here is build.xml. I'll copy it and I'll paste it in my project, replace the older one. So this is the project and you can give the project name on the top of this file. You can write module underscore junit underscore ant, right? You can give your module a name. Now in this build.xml, you start from this line and you define various properties first. That means the property name is workspace home, ws.home. You can give any name out here. I have just given a variable which looks familiar, ws.home. That means workspace home. That is, where is my workspace line? where is the project which I want to run through, and where does it lie? Okay, so that is actually lying at the location where build.xml is present. Okay, so I write the value as $base directory. That means at the location where my project is lying. Suppose my build.xml was lying in my F drive and the project was present in the C drive. Then I would have out here given the full path, that C colon my project. Okay, so generally keep build.xml in your project and give $base directory as the path. Alright, now after that, the second variable is workspace.jars. It tells you where all the jar files of your project will be present. All the jar files, okay, which you will be requiring in the project, they are present in F drive inside the folder jar. So these are the jars folder. Okay, I've given you the link to download this, right? You can download it. Fine. Now test.destination. What happens is that when Eclipse compiles the programs, told you right when I was teaching you Java, when Eclipse compiles the programs, it keeps the jar file, the class files inside a folder called bin. Inside it, it will keep all the class files. Now I will tell Ant that when you compile the programs, you keep all the Java file, all the class files inside workspace home under a folder called build instead of bin. So all the class files which are compiled by Ant will go over here. Okay, so source folder is the folder where all the Java files are lying, and the test results, test.reports directory, a variable. That is, all my reports will go inside C drive REP folder. So you can give your own folder over here if you want to. So all you need to do in this file is that you need to change these two paths according to your PC. That's it. Okay, now rest everything you need to know how this runs. You don't have to change anything in this file now after this. Okay, so the next thing is that you should understand about various targets present in this file. This is the first target called clean. Target name is clean. It says that delete the directory test.destination. Test.destination is the directory. This is the one. The where your all class files are present. That is, delete all the class files and the folder. Okay. The next target is that compile. The compile target, what it does is it tells you that okay, fine, if the test destination directory is existing, delete that directory, the same word as the delete target was doing. After that, echo the message making the directory. See, these are kind of Unix commands, right? Commands which you use in command prompt as well. And after that, make the directory, compile the program, and put all the class files over there in the build directory. Okay, so the compile program will actually generate all the class files and generate the folder build and through this make directory build, right? And it will put all the class files by compiling all the class files. Okay, now there in the end there is the most important target. This is the one. Target name is run. The run target will actually execute all your tests, and it executes all the tests by mentioning the jar files, that the jar files are present at this location. So you'll have to change this location as well, the place where your jar files are present. Okay, so I shouldn't be hard coding this. I'll correct it later on. You can just write over here the value of the variable f colon jars, ws.jars. This is the variable. What I will do is, instead of putting it like this, you can tell it that pick it up from the variable. You write it like this. You access the variable like this in Excel file, $workspace.jars. Okay, now this is the batch run property. This is the most important thing. Okay, you write it like this, that the reports have to be out to test.reports directory. That means after the batch run, I need to export it to C drive repository, test.reports directory. this was the variable made on the top, that here I want all the reports to be generated. Fine. And I'll have to mention the names of all the files which I want to run. So I want to run the file in my test. I want to run first test case dot class. So I'll write include name test cases slash first test case dot class. And after that I want to run second test case dot class, and after that I want to run parameterized test case dot class. You can press F2 and you can just copy this name, F2 on the file. That means you want to copy the file name, parameterized test case, and in the end understanding assertions dot class. Right, so I specified all the test names over here which I want to run using AND. Now after that, all you have to do is that you have to go to the location of this project, basically the location where build.xml is present. This build.xml is present inside this project, and this project is present in this directory. You have to go on the command prompt, go to the directory and give the command and clean. So if the build directory is existing, it will clean it. Now if you give the command and compile, the target names, you have to write the target names over here, and clean is the target, compile is the target for compiling the project. When I write and compile, the whole project gets compiled, and if I right click on the project, if I go and right click and refresh on the project, I'll see a folder called build generated. This is because my target compile was making the directory called build, right? And inside this, it's placing all the class files of the corresponding projects. So these class files will be read by the run target, okay, through these 4 statements, and it will run all the test cases. I'll write over here and run. Okay, when I hit enter, everything starts running, and in the end build successful, you will get the message. And the reports directory, I had given the path as the report should be generated inside the C drive REP folder. You have to make sure that the REP folder is present, or any other folder whichever you want to create in whichever drive. REP folder, here are the HTML reports. Okay, you open index.html and you will see all the 4 test cases. These are the 4 classes which I actually executed. First test class had 2 test methods in it, both of them that they were passing, login test and database test. So these are the 2 ones. First test case is having login test, register test was ignored, it was not executed, and database test was executed. Fine. Okay, so if you see this is the output. If I want to see system.out.println inside this test, they are present here. See, logging in the user and testing the database. Right, so it's that simple using JUnit. See, logging in the user and testing the database. This was ignored, so this was not a part of the stuff which was printed. Okay, similarly, parameterized test case, it got executed 3 times with different tests, the test data, right? And the status is success. Second test case and understanding assertions. Now in assertions I have had deliberately failed the program, and this is how it has failed. And each test case would have its own system.out.println. Okay, these are the system.out.println in understanding assertions. So these are how reports are generated. They are generated automatically. You don't have to worry how it is generated. All you have to do is you have to correct the build.xml properly. Now when you copy this build.xml into your project on your hard disk, when you download it from the link on this video, okay, you can just change these two properties. That's it, and you will be able to run the program. Okay, now suppose in my folder I want to run all the files having the word test case in them. TESTCSE, for example, first test case, second test case, parameterized test case. I want to run the files having the word test case in them. So what I can do is I can make a generalized expression, a kind of regular expression in my run target. I can write over here, I'll delete these 3 lines and write over here, include the name. Instead of package name, I'll write star star and star test case star dot class. That means that any file having the word test case in it, just run that file using ant. Okay, now when I run it using ant, the reports will be generated again. You see the reports are being generated again, and if I look at the REP folder, reports folder, you'll see index.html, and you can open it with the Firefox browser, and you'll see just 3 test cases having the word first test case, parameterized test case, and second test case being executed. So these are the 3 classes which got executed. And in Java, in your Eclipse, this understanding assertions is not executed because it's not a part. That means it's not having the word test case, right? Now suppose I want to run everything as a part of test suite. I want to use my test suite runner. In Eclipse, I just used to right click on it and I used to say run as test suite. All the classes under this test suite used to execute. Now if I want to run this as a test suite, then in your build.xml, you can just mention the name of this file. That's it. You mention star star over here, or you can also mention the package name. So when I run that, and I mention my test suite runner over here, all the test cases would be executed like a test suite. Fine. So because this runner class is having mentioned for all the test cases, first test case, second test case, understanding assertions, right? So when I run this using command prompt, when I go to command prompt and give the command and run, and it runs, and we look at our reports, open it in index.html, and out here only one class will be present, my test suite runner. Okay, and when I click on it, it will mention the name of all the test cases executed under it. This was the test case in the first file to be executed by it was understanding assertions. Okay, and this is the first test. The second class was first test case dot class, then after that second test case dot class. First test case dot class had these 2 test cases, the ones which I have highlighted, and second test case dot class had these 2 test cases. So I have just executed everything as a part of one test suite, and it gives you time and all, everything, right? Okay, now suppose this is how you run it with ant. Okay, now sometimes manager comes up to you and tells you that fine, you should actually make an exe file or a bat file to run your programs. That is a file on which you double click, it will just be like an exe file. You double click on it and the ant executes everything. Okay, so for that all you need to do is, it's very easy. Okay, all you need to do is that, suppose I'll go onto my desktop and I'll open a notepad. Fine, out here I'll give the Unix commands, this the normal command which we give, cd and you give the path of your project. That means the path where build.xml is lying. You give this path, and in the next line give the path. Oh, first give the command f drive, that is shift the path to f drive. When I open a command prompt and I want to run my program which is present, the project is present in F drive, right? The first command I give is F drive. That is I move over to F drive. So I'm giving the F drive command here. Then after that I write CD and I go to the project path and I give the second command over here. And the third command will be and clean compile run. Simple. All the three targets. Right? And you can save this file on hard disk. I'll save it on my desktop. In double quotes I will write my test suite runner file dot bat. I'll give the extension as dot bat file. In dot bat file is a kind of executable file. Okay, I'll save this. Fine. I'll close my command prompt. See, this is the bat file which is generated. In double quotes I had given the name. Alright. Now when I double click on this, the command prompt will open and everything will happen. The whole project will run like a test suite and it will close in the end. And if you go to your C drive REP folder, the reports would be generated. See, the latest time modification is 3:31 p.m. and it is 3:31 p.m. right now. So this index.html just got made right now through the exe file. Okay, I'll delete all the reports and I'll run the exe file again. So this will run all the test cases again. So this is about AND, right? And it's a very helpful tool. See, all the reports got generated again. Fine. So this is a very helpful thing. You create an exe file and you double click on it and all your test cases are executed. And this is a very, very important stuff. Okay. So now generally what we do is we keep this bat file also in the project. I'll copy this and I'll paste it in the project. Okay. When I paste it in the project and I open it with the text editor, out here I don't need to go to F drive now. Okay. Neither I need to go to this path. All I need to do is that I need to give the command and clean compile run because I'm already at that path. So when I double click on this file, or it's not, I'll write open. I'll go to the path where this file is present. When I double click on it, again the same thing happens. That's it. Only one line, and clean compile run, and save it as a .bat file. How do you save it as a .bat file? You open a notepad, write something, save it, and in double quotes you write the name. Okay, so this is a general principle of Windows. In double quotes, had I written xyz.doc, this would have created a Word document on the desktop. It's a general rule in Windows. Okay, fine. So that's it. That's about JUnit and AND. Now the only thing is that you either learn test ng or you learn JUnit, as I had explained to you in the beginning of this video. Fine. So it's completely up to you. Thank you.